Lyra sat alone in the small ceremonial room, her hands shaking as she held the thin silver bracelet that marked her fate. The room was quiet, too quiet, and every sound felt louder than normal. The soft hum of the walls, the distant footsteps, even her own heartbeat. She tried to breathe slowly, but fear pressed tight on her chest that today was the day she had always feared. Today, she would meet a human. Her people had warned her since childhood. Humans are brutal. Humans are cold. Humans destroy anything they do not understand. Every story she grew up with painted humans as monsters. Creatures with fire in their eyes. Beings who could crush an alien with one hand. Voices around her home always whispered horror whenever humans were mentioned, and now, she was being forced to stand in front of one. Her pairing ceremony had been chosen by treating one alien girl from her colony, one human soldier from Earth, a symbolic gesture of peace between two species who once tried to destroy each other. The idea of peace sounded beautiful in speeches, but right now, Lyra only felt dread. She looked at her reflection in the polished floor. Her lavender skin looked pale, almost gray. Her long silver hair, usually neatly braided, was messy from her trembling hands. She felt small, weak, nothing like the strong warriors around her colony. Suddenly, the door opened. A tall alien officer stepped inside. His armor shined under the blue lights and his voice was firm. "Lyra," he said, "your human partner is on the way. Prepare yourself." Her heart dropped. What is his name?" she whispered. "Ethan Cole," the officer replied. "A soldier from the Terran fleet. A human soldier." The worst kind in her imagination. The officer studied her face, then sighed softly. "You fear humans," he said. "I understand. Many here do, but remember, fear comes from stories, not always from truth." He left, but his words didn't calm her. Lyra hugged herself, her thin fingers gripping the ceremonial cloth draped over her shoulders. She tried to imagine what the human would look like. Would he have burning eyes? Would he stare at her like prey? Would he even speak her name with respect? A cold shiver ran down her spine. Memories flashed in her mind, old lessons from her childhood learning halls. Holograms showing human wars, battles, explosions that shook planets. Lessons telling alien children that humans fight without emotion, that humans are dangerous because they feel nothing when blood spills. Those images were carved inside her mind. What if he hurt her? What if he was angry about the pairing? What if he hated aliens? Her throat tightened. She wanted to run, but guards stood outside, ready to escort her into the ceremony chamber. Running was not an option. Facing the unknown was her only choice. She closed her eyes and tried to steady her breathing. "I am Lyra," she told herself. "I must survive this." The walls around her flickered, activating the educational hologram sequence. 3 terrible scenes played in front of her. Scene 1. A human soldier lifting a metal beam with impossible strength. Scene 2. Humans firing weapons that melted walls. Scene 3. A human shouting in rage during battle. Lyra flinched. Her hands covered her ears, even though the holograms had no sound. "Turn it off," she whispered, shaking. "Please, turn it off." The hologram stopped as if it heard her weakness. The room became silent again, too silent. It made her anxiety worse. Minutes passed like hours. Finally she heard it. Bootsteps. Not alien boots. These were heavier, slower, deeper. Slower, deeper. Synquote, Thiwunand. Then got it quote you steps. Not alien boots. These were heavier, slower, deeper. The steps of someone who carried his weight with confidence. Someone trained. Someone dangerous. A human. Lyra's entire body froze. The sound moved closer and closer down the long metal hallway. Every step echoed like thunder inside her mind. She stood up without realizing it. Her knees were weak, but fear forced her to stand. She fixed her posture, wiped her tears, and tried to look calm, even though her whole body trembled. The officer outside the door announced loudly, "Human soldier Ethan Cole has arrived for the pairing ceremony." Lyra swallowed hard. Her heart felt like it might break out of her chest. Her hands gripped the bracelet tightly until her fingers went numb. A shadow appeared under the door. His shadow. The handle turned. Slowly. Slowly, the door began to open. This was the moment Lyra had feared her entire life. This was the moment the stories warned her about. Her breath caught in her throat. She expected a monster. She expected a wild beast. She expected burning eyes and cruel anger. But when the door finally opened fully, the human standing there looked nothing like the creature she imagined. He looked calm. He looked gentle. He looked almost confused, as if he was just as scared as she was. Lyra blinked in shock. The human soldier, Ethan Cole, slowly lowered his weapon belt, raised both hands to show peace, and gave a small respectful bow. "Hello," he said softly. "I am not here to hurt you." Lyra's fear didn't disappear, but something inside her cracked, just a little. A tiny spark of doubt formed in her mind. Maybe humans are not what I was told. Fade out. Ethan Cole stood at the doorway, breathing quiet and controlled, like someone trained to hide his emotions. But even from across the room, Lyra could sense something unexpected in his eyes. Hesitation. Or maybe fear. It confused her deeply. Why would a human be afraid? Weren't humans supposed to be fearless, brutal, unshakable? Lyra stepped back, without meaning to. Her bare feet made a soft sound on the glass-like floor. Ethan noticed immediately and stopped walking, almost freezing mid-step. "It's okay," he said gently. His voice wasn't loud or sharp like she imagined. It was warm, steady, almost careful. "I won't come closer unless you allow me." Allow him? A human soldier asking permission? Her society never taught her that humans even understood the meaning of gentleness. Lyra forced herself to speak. Her voice came out broken and small. You are not what I expected." Ethan gave a faint, awkward smile, the kind someone gives when they don't know what else to do. "I get that a lot." He slowly lowered his gaze, not in dominance but in respect. Lyra blinked again. Every action he took went against everything she learned. Humans were supposed to be aggressive, loud, proud, but this one seemed human. The alien officer cleared his throat and stepped between them. "We will begin the first phase," he announced. "The mind link initiation." Lyra's heart jumped. She knew about this part. The mind link was always the most dangerous moment of a pairing ceremony. For 1 minute, their thoughts and emotions would merge. No lies, no masks, no hiding. Just truth. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. "Already, I wasn't told." The officer cut him off. "If your species wants peace, soldier, then your fear is irrelevant." Fear. There it was again. Lyra stared at Ethan, confused. Why would a human trained for war be afraid of linking with her? Ethan took a slow breath, then nodded. "All right, I'm ready." He wasn't ready. Lyra could see that clearly. The officer pressed a button. Soft blue light filled the room. A circular platform rose from the floor, glowing softly. "Stand across from each other," the officer commanded. Lyra stepped onto the platform, her legs trembling. Ethan stepped onto the opposite side. The platform sensed their presence and activated a thin arc of energy around them. Lyra felt her palms sweat. "Will it hurt?" she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "Not if we don't resist." "Resist?" Lyra tightened her grip on the bracelet. "Why would I resist?" He hesitated. "Because you're terrified of me." The words struck her like a shock. She gasped. How did he know? Could he already sense it? But the answer came quickly. Of course. He knew. Her fear was written all over her. The officer raised his hand. Mind link, begin. A pulse of white energy shot upward. Lyra flinched as a strange warmth touched her forehead. A tiny spark that felt like a door opening inside her mind. Suddenly, she wasn't alone. She felt something enter her thoughts. Something not hers. Something foreign. Yet calm. Ethan. She felt his heartbeat. She felt his anxiety. She felt his confusion. And the most shocking thing of all, she felt his fear. Real fear. The fear wasn't for himself. It was fear of hurting her. Lyra's breath caught. He's scared of making me feel unsafe. Her people told her humans don't care. They told her humans enjoy violence. They told her humans only think of themselves. But inside his thoughts, she found none of that. Instead, she saw an image: Ethan as a child, crying while holding a small alien creature his father accidentally injured. Ethan had tried to save it, protect it. She saw another memory: Ethan refusing to shoot during training when a civilian was near. And then, she felt something deeper, a grief so heavy it made her knees weak. Ethan had lost someone, a woman. A sister? A friend? Lyra couldn't tell. The memory flashed by too fast, but the pain stayed. Ethan carried it like a silent storm inside his chest. Lyra clutched her heart. You're not what they told me, she whispered, forgetting the officer was even in the room. Ethan looked up, surprised. You can feel that? Yes. She breathed. Your fear, your sadness, your kindness. The arc of energy around them glowed brighter as the link deepened. The officer looked shocked. This bond. It's forming too fast, he muttered. This is not normal. Lyra barely heard him. She was too busy staring at Ethan, really looking at him for the first time. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't a beast. He wasn't a threat. He was just a man, and a hurting one. Ethan let out a slow breath. You're not what they told me either. Lyra's eyes widened. What do humans say about us? He shook his head. That you hate. U.S. that you're cold. That you feel nothing. Lyra felt tears gather. That's not true. And neither is what you learned about us, he replied softly. The platform dimmed as the mind link timer ended. The connection faded, leaving a strange emptiness behind, an emptiness Lyra didn't expect to feel. She missed the connection already. The officer stepped forward, clearing his throat loudly. The link is complete, he said. Proceed to the next stage. But neither of them moved. They simply kept staring at each other. No fear, just curiosity. Maybe even something more. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt a spark of hope where only fear used to live. The room felt strangely quiet after the mind link ended. Too quiet, like the silence that follows a storm. Lyra stood frozen on the glowing platform, her chest rising and falling in slow, shaky breaths. For the first time in her life, she didn't know what to think. Everything she believed about humans was breaking apart. Ethan stepped off the platform first, moving slowly like he didn't want to startle her. His footsteps were soft, careful, respectful. Not the heavy, violent steps she had heard in warnings all her life. Lyra stepped down as well, her knees still weak. She kept her eyes on Ethan, studying him with new understanding. In the mind link, she had seen pieces of his soul: fear, grief, kindness, patience. None of those matched the monster she expected. The officer tapped his device, recording the results. Unusual emotional connection detected, he muttered. Humans and our species do not normally link that easily. Ethan scratched the back of his neck awkwardly. Guess we're not normal. Lyra looked at him slowly. His smile wasn't confident or proud, it was shy. Almost embarrassed. Another strange feeling touched her chest. Was this warmth? The officer dismissed them for a short break, leaving the room. The moment the door shut, silence washed over them again, soft, gentle, comfortable this time. Ethan broke it first. Can I ask something? He said quietly. Lyra nodded, her voice too tangled to speak. When you linked with me, what did you feel? Lyra hesitated. This question was dangerous. Her people believed sharing emotional truths with humans was a weakness. But she remembered. The moment she felt his sadness, the weight of his memories, the fear that he might harm her by accident, she lifted her eyes. I felt you were gentle, she said slowly, and scared of hurting me. Ethan let out a breath he had been holding. Good, I didn't want to hide that. You tried to protect me, Lyra continued softly, remembering the flashes she saw in his mind. You protected the alien creature in your memory. You almost cried. Ethan looked away, embarrassed. A human soldier crying over a small alien animal? It would shock her entire colony. But Lyra saw beauty in it. How can your people call that brutal? She whispered to herself, not realizing Ethan heard her. He turned back to her, a serious look in his eyes. I don't know what stories your people told you about us. But humans, we feel a lot, sometimes too much. Lyra stepped closer without even thinking. Then why do our histories only show violence? He sighed. Because war stories are the loudest. Kindness is quiet. It never gets recorded. The words struck her hard. She always thought humans didn't care about anything except power. But now she wondered how much of her education was twisted. How much fear was forced into her since childhood. Her hand lightly touched her own chest. I felt something else too, she whispered. Pain. You lost someone. Ethan stiffened, eyes darkening. Yeah, I did. Who was she? Lyra. Asked. His jaw tightened. My sister. She died in an accident 3 years ago. I couldn't save her. Lyra's heart ached. She felt the memory again, the sharp flash of grief from the mind link, the deep sadness that Ethan carried, but never spoke about. I'm sorry, she whispered. It's okay. He forced a soft smile. You didn't hurt me. You just saw the truth. Lyra took a small breath. Then maybe you should see my truth too. Ethan blinked. Your truth? Lyra nodded. My people taught me to fear humans. Every picture of your kind shows anger. Every video shows weapons. Every story ends in death. She lowered her gaze. They trained us to see you as monsters. Ethan's voice was quiet. And now what do you see? Lyra lifted her head slowly. I see someone who feels. Someone who cares. Someone who doesn't want to hurt me. Ethan's eyes softened. Then maybe that's a good start. A warm silence rested between them. Not fear, not tension. Just connection. The fragile beginning of understanding. Suddenly, the door hissed open and another alien officer entered, this one younger and clearly nervous. We have a problem, he said sharply. Rebel groups detected near the colony halls. They are against human-alien pairings. Ethan immediately stepped forward. Are we in danger? The officer nodded. Possibly. They believe your pairing with Lyra is a violation of tradition. Lyra's stomach twisted. Rebels. The extreme ones. The ones who attacked anyone touched by humans. The officer continued. They might try to disrupt the ceremony or target Lyra. Ethan looked at Lyra instantly, worry in his eyes. Target her? Why her? Because she was chosen to match with you, the officer said. Some believe she is betraying her species. Lyra froze, old fear gripping her again. Ethan stepped closer to her, not aggressively, but protectively. The way someone guards something important. Don't worry, he said quietly. I won't let anything happen to you. Lyra looked up, surprised by how steady he sounded. There was no hesitation. No fear. Just promise. Her heart beat a little faster. Was this what humans were truly like? Not monsters, but protectors? Before she could answer, alarms suddenly rang through the entire hall. Red lights flashed. Warning signals echoed like thunder. The officer shouted, Rebels are inside the building. Ethan instinctively moved in front of Lyra, shielding her with his body. And in that moment, Lyra realized something she never expected. She wasn't afraid of the human anymore. She was afraid of losing him. The alarm screamed through the colony. Like a living creature in pain, sharp, loud, and impossible to ignore. Red emergency lights flashed along the ceilings, painting the halls in a frightening glow. Lyra felt her body tense with instinctive fear, but before she could even move, Ethan placed himself directly in front of her. His stance changed instantly. Gone was the quiet, gentle human from moments ago. Now he stood like a shield, solid, alert, and ready. "Stay behind me," he said, voice calm but firm. Lyra's throat tightened. "Ethan, you don't have to do." "I do," he interrupted. "You're my partner now." Partner. The word felt heavy, powerful, strange. Lyra had never imagined a human saying such a thing about her. The officer shouted from behind them, "We need to move to the safe chamber immediately. Rebels have breached the East Wing and are moving toward the ceremony hall." Lyra's heart dropped. The rebels hated humans. They hated peace. And they especially hated alien girls who accepted humans. She whispered, "They're coming for me." Ethan glanced back at her, eyes burning with determination. "Then they'll have to go through me first." He grabbed her wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough that she felt protected. Together, they ran into the corridor. The hall stretched ahead, long and dim, with shadows flickering from the flashing lights. A deep explosion shook the floor beneath them. Lyra stumbled, but Ethan tightened his hold and steadied her. "You okay?" She nodded shakily. "Yes, I think so." They sprinted past large windows where distant smoke rose from other parts of the colony. The distant echo of laser fire vibrated through the walls, short bursts, followed by angry shouts. Everything felt unreal, like a nightmare she once feared, but now had to face. The officer led the way, shouting instructions into his communicator. "Rebel group confirmed, Sector 3, moving fast." "They're heavily armed," Ethan muttered. "Of course they are." They reached a narrow corridor. The officer stopped abruptly. "Take cover." Before Lyra understood what was happening, 3 masked rebels came around the corner, raising plasma rifles. Their glowing eyes locked on her immediately. "There!" One rebel shouted. "The humans pair capture her." Lyra froze in terror. Ethan didn't. He lunged forward, grabbing Lyra and pushing her behind a support beam as the rebels fired. Blue plasma bolts slammed into the walls, scorching the metal and sending sparks everywhere. Ethan drew his human sidearm, small but powerful. He fired 2 quick shots, forcing the rebels to duck back behind the corner. "Move!" the officer shouted. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand again and pulled her forward. But as they ran, Lyra felt something shift inside her chest, something she never expected. She wasn't just running out of fear. She was running because she wanted Ethan safe too. Another explosion hit closer this time, throwing heat across their backs. Lyra stumbled again, but Ethan caught her without breaking stride. "You're doing great," he said reassuringly. His calm voice in the chaos made her heart skip. But the danger wasn't over. Just before they reached the next hallway, a rebel jumped out from a side door and blocked their path. He aimed his rifle directly at Lyra's heart. "There's no future with humans," he hissed. "Step aside, soldier." Ethan didn't hesitate. Not happening. He pushed Lyra behind him so fast she barely understood what was happening. The rebel fired. Lyra screamed, but Ethan was faster than she imagined any human could be. He twisted his body, absorbing the blast onto his armored shoulder instead of letting it hit her. The bolt flared, lighting up the entire corridor as Ethan staggered back from the impact. "Ethan!" Lyra cried, reaching for him. He winced in pain but didn't fall. Instead, he pushed her back gently. "Stay behind me." "Please," he whispered. His voice cracked, not from fear, but from pain he tried to hide. The officer neutralized the rebel with a stun blast. But Lyra couldn't take her eyes off Ethan. He had just taken a direct hit for her. A human, the species she was taught to fear. The species she thought had no heart. He risked his life without hesitation. Why would you do that? Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan gave her a small, pained smile. Told you, you're my partner. I protect my partner. Her chest tightened. This feeling. She didn't understand it, but it pulled her closer to him without warning. The officer checked Ethan's shoulder. You're injured. Yeah, Ethan muttered, shrugging it off. I've had worse. Lyra touched his arm hesitantly. Does it hurt? Only when I breathe, he joked to make her smile. She did smile. Just a little, but only because she was fighting back tears. Another alarm blared, louder than before. The officer shouted, Rebels are closing in. We must reach the inner chamber now. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand again, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. Let's go, he said, pulling her close. And as they ran, the thought burning in Lyra's mind was no longer fear. It was something far more dangerous. Humans were never the monsters. The monsters were the lies she grew up with. And Ethan was proving it with every step. The colony hall shook again, this time so violently that dust rained down from the ceiling. Lyra stumbled, but Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Even with his injured shoulder, he held her steady, like she weighed nothing. Keep moving, the officer shouted. The rebels are cutting off every exit. Ethan nodded and pulled Lyra close, guiding her quickly through the twisting corridors. Lyra felt his grip tighten each time an explosion echoed nearby. Despite the chaos, despite the danger, he never once let go of her hand. They reached a long tunnel lit with flickering emergency lights. Smoke drifted across the floor like a low fog. The sound of distant plasma shots bounced off the metal walls, creating an eerie echo. Lyra swallowed hard. Are we almost safe? Ethan gave her a quick look, his expression serious but gentle. Not yet, but we will be. How can you be so sure? She whispered. He smiled slightly. Because I'm not alone. Her heart fluttered at those words, though she didn't fully understand why. Before they could continue, the officer stopped abruptly and checked a wall panel. The main path is blocked. We need to go through the maintenance tunnel. He pressed a button, opening a narrow, dim passage filled with pipes and wires. Ethan glanced inside and then looked at Lyra. Stay close. It's tight in there, Lyra nodded, though her chest tightened with fear. The tunnel was dark and suffocating, nothing like the wide open halls she was used to. But Ethan's presence beside her made her feel strangely braver. She followed him into the tight passage. The metal floor was cold against her feet, and every sound echoed loudly. Ethan moved slowly, guiding her through pipes and low beams, shielding her from sharp edges. But halfway through, Lyra heard voices behind them, angry, fast-moving voices. The rebels, Ethan muttered, turning back. They're close. The officer whispered harshly, Hurry! Ethan pulled Lyra faster. They emerged from the maintenance tunnel into a wider hall, but it wasn't empty. 3 rebels stood at the far end, rifles raised, target spotted. One shouted. Lyra froze. Fear clamped her chest. Ethan stepped in front of her again, drawing his weapon with his uninjured hand. Get behind that pillar, he said urgently. I won't leave you, she protested without thinking. Ethan met her eyes, sharp, warm, determined. I don't need you to leave. I just need you safe. Something deep in Lyra's chest tightened again. She ducked behind the pillar as Ethan fired back. Plasma bolts lit up the corridor with sharp flashes. The officer joined the fight, but the rebels were advancing fast. A plasma shot struck the wall beside Lyra. She gasped as sparks flew past her face. The officer shouted, We're pinned down. The rebels kept coming. Ethan grit his teeth, aiming carefully despite his injured shoulder. But Lyra could see the pain in his face. Every shot strained him. He was slowing down. A rebel moved along the side wall, angling toward Lyra. Ethan saw him too late to fire. Without hesitation, Ethan dropped his weapon and rushed toward her, shouting, "Lyra, get down!" She ducked as Ethan threw himself over her, shielding her with his body just as the rebel fired. The blast slammed into Ethan's back armor, knocking them both to the floor. The impact echoed through Lyra's bones. "Ethan!" she cried, grabbing his arm. He groaned softly but forced a breath. I'm okay. But she knew he wasn't. His armor was smoking. His breaths were shallow. He had taken 2 hits, now both meant for her. Why? Why would a human do that? Why for her? The officer managed to take down the last rebel with a stun blast. The hall went quiet again, except for the distant alarms. Ethan tried to push himself up, but his arm shook. Lyra quickly wrapped her hands around him, helping him sit. "You can't keep doing this," she whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "You'll die protecting me." He looked at her with tired but soft eyes. "Better me than you," her breath caught. "Why? I'm no one. I'm just a girl they assigned to you." "No," Ethan said, shaking his head weakly. "You're someone who doesn't deserve to die for a war you never asked for." Lyra stared at him, stunned by the sincerity in his voice. The officer interrupted urgently. "We must reach the inner safe chamber before they regroup." Ethan took a weak breath, then tried to stand. His legs shook, and Lyra quickly supported him with her shoulder. He gave her a small smile. "Guess now you're helping me escape." She laughed softly. Through her fear. "We escaped together," he nodded. "Together." With Lyra supporting him, they moved through the next corridor. His steps were uneven, his breathing rough, but he never complained. And Lyra never let go of him, not even for a second. Something had changed inside her. Hours ago, she feared humans more than anything in the galaxy. Now she feared losing this one human more than anything. As they limped toward the final chamber, rebels shouting somewhere behind them, Lyra pressed closer to Ethan, whispering the truth she had just discovered. "You're not the monster they told me about." Ethan looked at her softly. "And you're not the enemy they told me about." They stepped into the last hall together. The inner chamber door slid open with a heavy metallic sound, revealing a quiet, dimly lit room. For the first time since the attack began, the world outside felt distant, like the chaos belonged to another lifetime. Inside, the air was calm, cool, almost sacred. Ethan leaned heavily on Lyra as they entered. His steps were uneven, his breath sharp. The burns on his armor glowed faintly, proof of how many hits he had taken for her. Lyra guided him to a low platform near the chamber wall. "Sit, please." Ethan tried to laugh, but it came out strained. "Didn't think my first day here would end like this." Lyra touched his injured shoulder gently. "You shouldn't talk. You need to rest." He shook his head. "Not until I know you're safe." Her heart squeezed painfully. He was hurt because of her. And still, he kept worrying about her safety instead of his own life. The officer approached with a medical device. "This will stabilize him for a few minutes," he said, pressing a glowing patch to Ethan's side. Ethan hissed as the patch activated, spreading warmth through his injury. "You humans," the officer muttered, quietly, "are too reckless." Ethan smirked. "Comes with the uniform." But Lyra didn't smile. She watched him with trembling hands, her chest heavy with emotions she didn't yet understand. After the officer stepped away to secure the door, Lyra slowly sat beside Ethan. Their shoulders touched. He didn't move away for a long moment. Neither spoke. Finally, Lyra whispered, "You were hurt because of me." Ethan shook his head. "I was hurt because rebels attacked us. You didn't cause that, but you protected me. You put your body in front of mine twice." He looked at her, eyes soft. "I'd do it again." Lyra's breath caught. "Why?" "Because." He hesitated, searching for the words. "Because no one should be punished for wanting peace. And because even if we just met, you matter." The room felt warmer. Lyra couldn't explain it, but something inside her broke open like a cracked shell. She had never heard such words from anyone, especially not from someone she was trained to fear. "You matter too," she whispered. Ethan blinked, surprised. "I do, yes." She looked down at her hands. "In the link, I felt your pain. You lost someone, your sister, and yet you still try to protect others." He swallowed hard. "I don't always get it right, but I try. And that is why you matter." Ethan stared at her for a moment, seeing something in her he hadn't noticed before. Courage. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind that grows once fear starts to fade. Outside, explosions echoed faintly, but inside the chamber, they felt far away, as if the room itself gave them a little bubble of peace. Lyra touched Ethan's hand gently. His eyes widened slightly, as if the contact shocked him more than any plasma blast. "Ethan," she whispered, "I don't understand why you would. Save me. I'm not special. I'm not a warrior. I'm not brave." He slowly turned his hand, letting their palms meet. "Lyra, you're brave in ways you don't see." She looked up, confused. "You met someone you were taught to fear," he said softly, "and still chose to understand him. That takes more courage than charging into any battle." Her throat tightened, emotions swirling so strongly she felt dizzy. A sudden boom shook the chamber walls. Dust drifted down from above. Lyra tensed instantly, but Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "It's okay," he said, though the pain in his voice betrayed him. "They won't break through." Lyra studied his face, the exhaustion, the quiet strength, the warmth that refused to dim even through pain. "Ethan," she said again, voice trembling, "I don't want you to die. Not because of me. Not at all." His eyes softened. "Hey, I'm tougher than I look." She shook her head. "I'm serious." "So am I," he whispered. Their hands stayed joined, fingers curling together slowly, naturally, like they were meant to. The chamber lights flickered, signaling the emergency system shifting to a new mode. The officer returned, urgency in his voice. "We have one last step to complete before evacuation, the emotional verification. If your bond is strong enough, we can activate the protection codes for both of you." Lyra blinked. "Emotional verification?" Ethan exhaled. "Sounds fun." The officer placed a small glowing crystal between them. "Both of you must touch it. It will read your connection." Lyra hesitated. What if the crystal sensed her fear? What if it rejected her? Ethan saw the doubt in her eyes. He leaned forward, voice soft. "Do you trust me?" Lyra's heart pounded. Slowly. She nodded. He smiled, a weak, tired smile, but sincere. "Then let's do this." Together, they placed their hands on the crystal dot. It glowed softly, then brighter, then blindingly warm. The officer stared, shocked. This level of bond, it's extremely rare." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Rare is good, right?" Lyra didn't answer. She couldn't look away from him. Because in that moment, she finally understood something. She didn't fear Ethan. She feared a world where he didn't survive. And deep inside, she made a choice she never expected to make. "If he protects me, then I will protect him too." The crystal between them glowed brighter and brighter, until the entire inner chamber was filled with soft golden light. Lyra felt a warmth spreading up her arms, into her chest, into her heartbeat itself, like the crystal was reading every emotion she tried to hide. The officer stepped back in shock. "This reading, I've never seen anything like it." Ethan looked at Lyra, breath unsteady. "Is that good?" The officer swallowed. "It means your bond is strong enough to activate dual protection rights." Both of you will be recognized as a united pair under the treaty. Lyra blinked slowly. A pair. Not forced. Not political. Not ceremonial. Real. She looked at Ethan. And for the first time, she didn't feel fear. She felt something deeper. Something steady. Something warm that wrapped around her like invisible arms. Ethan removed his hand from the crystal, but kept his fingers loosely touching hers. "Guess we passed the test," he said softly. Lyra smiled, small but genuine. "I think we did more than pass." Before Ethan could respond, the chamber shook violently. A huge explosion boomed from outside the door. The officer shouted, "They found the chamber! Get ready, they're preparing to breach." Lyra jumped in fear, but Ethan immediately stood between her and the door, even with his injured shoulder. His body was shaking, but his stance remained firm. The officer hurried to him. "Soldier, you're injured. If they enter, you cannot. Protect her." Ethan didn't move. "I'll protect her until my last breath." Lyra's heart twisted painfully. She grasped his arm. "You can't fight like this." He turned to her, his voice gentle but unwavering. "I won't let them take you, not while I'm alive." Those words. She had never heard anything so fearless, or so terrifying. She stepped closer, placing both her hands on his injured chest. "Ethan, don't throw your life away," she whispered. "I don't want you to die for me." He met her gaze with tired but warm eyes. "I'm not dying for you, Lyra. I'm living with you. But first, we survive this." Her breath caught. Living with her? The door sparked as rebels tried to cut through it. Metal hissed and glowed red. Lyra felt something rise inside her, courage she didn't know she had. "No," she said suddenly. "We don't wait here." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra turned to the officer. "The bond is activated. Right? That means the system will transport a paired unit to the sanctuary chamber." The officer's eyes widened. "Yes, but only if both participants approve." Lyra grabbed Ethan's hand tightly. "Then we approve, together." Ethan hesitated only for a second before nodding. Together, the officer rushed to the control panel, initiating sanctuary transfer. The floor beneath them lit up with intricate patterns, like ancient symbols awakening. A glowing circle formed around Lyra and Ethan. The rebels outside shouted as they realized what was happening and slammed harder against the door. But it was too late. A rising beam of blue-white light enveloped Lyra and Ethan. The air hummed. The chamber faded around them. Lyra squeezed Ethan's hand, fear and hope mixing inside her heart. The last thing they heard was the officer's voice, distant and faint. "Bond confirmed. Pair secured. Transfer complete." The sanctuary chamber light faded. Lyra opened her eyes and gasped. They were in a completely different room, calm, warm, and safe. A dome of shimmering energy surrounded them, blocking all threats. Soft blue lights glowed from the walls. Ethan leaned against her, exhausted. She quickly supported him. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice trembling. He gave a weak smile. "I will be, because we made it." She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, relief overwhelming her. "Thank you for everything, for saving me, for believing in me." Ethan lifted her chin gently, his touch soft despite his injury. "Lyra, you saved me too." "Me?" she whispered. Double chest. His eyes softened. "You made me remember why peace matters, why we fight, why we hope." Lyra felt tears rise, but for once, they weren't from fear. "They told me humans were brutal," she said softly. "But you're nothing like the stories." Ethan shook his head. "They told me aliens were cold, that you felt nothing." Lyra let out a small, emotional laugh. "I feel too much right now." He smiled, tired, but real. "Good, because so do I." Their hands found each other, fingers tightening, not out of fear, but connection. The sanctuary dome glowed brighter around them. recognizing the completed bond. Lyra rested her head gently on Ethan's chest. He leaned his forehead against hers, and in that quiet, safe moment, after all the fear, danger, and lies, they understood the truth. They weren't enemies. They weren't strangers. They weren't a forced pairing. They were a bond born from survival, trust, and something even deeper blossoming quietly between them. Together, they whispered the same words at the same time. "You're not what I was taught to fear." And for the first time ever, Lyra felt her future shift, not away from a human, but toward one.